So thank you for coming in. I know that most people would be like, I'm extending my day off. But I'm really excited to be here. This is something that I'm really passionate about. I'll do a little bit about me as an introduction, then if you want to go around and introduce yourselves as well. My name is Ryan Seelock. I currently work at Washington County in their human services area. We call it community services. I'm our strategy and planning manager. I've been in that role for almost 4 years now, which is crazy with how fast time flies. Prior to that, I worked at Hennepin County for, I think, 5 years, some of which was in corrections, some of which was in human services, and then part of it was also on the COVID response task force as well. Before that, I worked in state government in New York doing juvenile justice reform. So government has been my kind of thing my entire career. It's something I feel really passionate about. I'm excited to walk through some of the work that we'll be doing together today, and then I also wanted to spend some time listening from you, some feedback on things that we might want to do from your lens that could improve the budget process. Carrie, I don't know if you want to add a little bit about kind of what your thoughts are for our working together. I know you've seen my proposal and talked through it. It's kind of handy. I could watch it on YouTube happening live. It was pretty cool. But so I kind of want to just turn over to you if you have any thoughts to kind of start us off this morning.
What I can add that you said. I just think through time, what I saw coming in as a new administrator, I think you had a couple of short-term administrators and processes of how they did things, I think were different. Different people, not right or wrong, but different processes. And I think even with the interdepartmental of how they go about their budgeting process or cycle, if you will, looks different. So what I saw was kind of a lack of consistency. Not that everybody has to do everything exactly the same, but I think getting down a good timeline and process. And I know there was some discussion with regards to going into this budgeting cycle. We don't know what things are going to look like, and is this the right time? And from my perspective, I think it is a very good time, because I think you can also, hopefully as a board, really come together and put some criteria together how you're going to make some of these decisions with regards and going through the budgeting process. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. I wanted to take time if you wanted to introduce yourselves to me.
That would be helpful to you?
Yeah, I think that would be great, especially as we're working together for a little bit here.
Yeah, so my name is Erica Jepson. I represent the whole eastern side of Becker County, District 1. This is my first term. I'm halfway through my first term.
Awesome.
A little bit of background about me. I used to be a Becker County employee. I worked in human services and child protection for about 10 years. And I currently also work for the Minnesota Department of Children and Families.
Awesome.
Barry Nelson, County Commissioner. Represent the west, southwest, northwest. Farm boy. Also a farm boy.
And you've been here a long time.
I'm an old guy. Not the oldest, though.
I'm the oldest.
How many years? The oldest.
How many years have you been commissioner?
21.
That's awesome. It's great to meet you.
Richard Barberg, County Commissioner, Hick, whatever, grew up
Fifth
on
year?
a farm like Barry.
Oldest guy in the
Fifth
room.
year?
Fifth year, yeah, oldest guy in the room.
Age is just a number.
Oh, no, it's not.
I think everybody knows me, so we'll pass.
Nathan Ball with the newspaper. I've been around since '96.
Awesome.
Remember when Barry was young and new?
Yeah.
I'm David Meyer. I am a commissioner and I represent everything in the city of Detroit Lakes, South Highway 10.
Okay. Awesome.
And then I'm in my third year.
Halfway through your first term.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Phil Hansen, brand new commissioner, 6 months, 5 months.
Awesome.
Represents south of Detroit Lakes. I just always recognize that organizations that I deal with, them, I don't want to philanthropic organizations, they have good strategic plans, and I thought this would be, I'm not in any other government things, but I thought that it would be something very good. As I'm trying to figure out the process, and we're going to get to budgeting, it's going to be tight this year, I just thought that this would be something that would be very beneficial, certainly to me, and I would hope it would be beneficial to the others. Barry said at one of our meetings, he said, I want somebody to come in here and say, this is what you got to do, go through all the rigmarole, do this, this, and this, and then nothing happens anyway. So I'm very wary of what you said. I don't want that to happen either. Guy's been around 20 years. He knows what's going on. I don't want that to happen. I want something productive. If only for me, I mean, that would be beneficial, but I would hope there would be something good for all
Definitely.
to come out of this.
So that's really helpful context. I appreciate that, Commissioner. So this is kind of I have a PowerPoint. This is more of a conversation. I just am that person that loves to play around with PowerPoint, so that's where I'm at. I don't know why you can't. There is a second slide, I promise. I don't know why this is acting up. Let's try that again. Just do it the old-fashioned way. Our agenda, though, today, I really just wanted to talk about kind of where you think there are opportunities for improvement, where you think we're doing the work in the budgeting and fiscal planning well, so that we can build off of this. We're eliciting feedback. We have a survey that's out to folks right now that we already think have like 6 responses. It's been interesting to read some of those, but I wanted to get a sense from all of you about what you think is working well for us to keep doing. Where are there things that you think we can change and modify? Because my goal is that by getting all this information and reviewing the data, we can really make some improvements here that actually lead to some change. So my goal for today is to conduct a SWOT analysis. I'm sure you've all heard of that. We'll just go through the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats related to what you all think about the budget development process. Are there places where you think you get great amount of information? It feels like it's very efficient. Are there places where you don't get a ton of information? You'd love to see more? So things like that. And then the last piece I wanted to talk about is really just to think about, in your minds, what would be an efficient and effective budget process, and start to create a little bit of a vision so that as we start to build some of this work and I work with some of the department leadership, they understand where your head is at about what you're looking for and what you need to make informed decisions, so that as we build some tools and redesign the budget process, it all kind of flows up to get you the information that you need to make some of those decisions, especially with the legislative session as it wraps up at the state legislature and then also some of the stuff at the federal. We know that there's some changes coming to all of our work and how we budget, and so being able to get you all on the same page is part of my goal for this. And then the last piece is that we'll just review some of the things that I've already started, the work ahead, and then if you have any other questions throughout all of this, please feel free to just stop me. I want to make sure that this is a really actionable conversation for all of you, because I know you're very busy, and I also recognize it's the day after a holiday, and this feels cruel. So any questions before we kind of jump in?
I don't have any.
Okay. So I just threw this, Carrie, you sent me the kind of timeline for the budget this year, and I threw it into a little bit of a Gantt chart just to see how things flow. My goal is to get a little bit more information on each of these steps through some of the conversations today with leadership. But this is currently how the process flows from start to finish.
I'm just gonna ask you to make it bigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry, I tried in present mode and it wasn't behaving, so we're just in normal Canva. I apologize. So budget worksheets, I think will be headed out, was it June 24th? And then this is kind of how it all waterfalls down to final budget and levy adoption in December at the end of the year. So it's a pretty short runway in terms of the time with which we get the information to the department heads to start working on it, back to them completing the preliminary budget by mid-July, and then we go through the review process. Does anything on here look incorrect, or I'm assuming it's not because Carrie sent it to me. So,
Well, I think, I'm not saying it's incorrect, but I think if we're looking at changing it, I would like commissioners to start earlier in the process.
okay.
Up there on department head administrator review. Because especially this year with the dollar amounts that we're going to be talking about, we're going to have to be deeply involved in the direction we want to go.
I'm going to try to take notes as we talk through, so I apologize if there's a little bit of gap there. That's a really good point. I think having worked in budget at my day job currently, we start our process back in February. Obviously, we're a larger county in the metro and all of that, but we have our initial budget meeting with administration in February, and all of our financial documents are actually due last Friday, which again is cruel to make them due on a holiday weekend, but every year they do it to us. So I do think that having some engagement sooner rather than later from the board is also super helpful, because it'll also help drive some of the conversations about what's on all of your minds as they start to fill things in.
Carrie, what's the feedback from the department heads about doing this? I'm sure you forwarded it to them. Are they saying, geez, just another thing to do, or do they think this can help them, or?
I think they're in the inquisitive phase at this
Okay.
point. I don't think I think this is a new process for them, so I don't know if they really know what questions to ask. I know I filtered quite a few questions before I left for Texas, but
And I
So,
think many of our department heads have been here for
a long time.
a long time, so they have their process in place, so it's,
And I think I kind of already went, I mean, I think they all, yes, been here a long time, and I think they kind of are in the, just how they do things,
yep.
so.
Yep.
in the
so
groove or
Yeah.
whatever, I don't know what the word is.
When you say earlier commissioner or board, whatever, budget process, are we you're talking like earlier in committees when they present budgets to us, or we talking?
I was
more
looking, up at department head and administrator review.
Yeah,
I would like Carrie to keep, maybe just individually to the committees, keep them, be very aware where things
Yeah.
are coming at.
so that's what I mean, so we bring it, because we always go through that committee, but we don't do it,
This is in the mid-July, it looks like.
yeah,
Where it goes to
we
Carrie,
do that,
I think
we should do that
those
early.
reference to all committee
Yep,
representatives too, not,
yep, that was my question.
Okay,
so Carrie can
Yep.
start.
glean off what that committee's looking at.
Okay.
That's what I think too, so.
Okay, I think that's better. Here we go. Sorry. These are all great ideas already of things that we can start to modify, so that's helpful.
And then the other thing too with that, last time, previously we've gone to the committee, we've gotten that committee, when we had the committee, we get it before.
To review prior to going into
review
committee?
Prior to, before we go to committee, or before we go to that budget committee day.
I also think it would be helpful to have a working session for the board prior to even finance committee review, or, I mean, prior to, for sure, set the preliminary levy. Because before, we haven't, if you're,
Correct.
the only committee I'm on is Human Services Committee, so then I don't get anything until, other than Human Services. And they're kind of like a well-oiled machine over there.
Yeah, it's
So-
it's usually ran through finance, so yeah, maybe looking at doing it
Yeah,
as a full
just
board.
something where at least the whole board
And
has
then,
some,
and then the external
Things like that.
entities, we probably need more information. Maybe at a work session, maybe that could be presented, or I don't.
What's an
maybe-
external entity?
Like
Soil
the
and water.
museum, soil and water,
Lakeland Mental
Lakeland
Health,
Mental
Food
Health,
pantry.
library,
library,
Becker County Fair,
Fair, county fair,
Ones that
Yeah.
we support externally,
yeah, the ones we support, yeah.
aging,
aging.
No,
Food
the
pantry.
Dancing Sky. I guess I'm on a lot of those committees, maybe I guess it's stuff to me then. But maybe we could, I don't know how to do
I
it.
think you said thresholds, if your request
Yeah.
is over X amount of
Yeah.
percent, then we dive deeper or something.
Yeah,
Like Lakeland Mental Health is asking for 0. I don't think we need to put a lot of time in that.
no, but we have a couple that are increasing,
Yeah, I think.
are asking to
Yeah,
increase
yeah,
significantly.
are asking.
What do you think the threshold should be? Have any ideas?
4,
Over 4% increase?
3 or 4,
Okay.
I mean,
What are you willing to give up if it's higher than that? And I'm not saying it's gonna be,
well, there are some that aren't gonna be higher.
well, so when you look at what you're doing as a farmer, and you go and try and buy something, to repair something or anything, when I'm looking at what my costs are, they're huge, they're not 4%. The inflation rate on what I'm buying, then so what do we do about it here when it gets
Well,
way
you
out
look
of
at
it?
each thing individually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, there's no, we're not doing anything here, I mean.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
You
Are
got-
we gonna
but
start
I think
telling
it's a
people?
trigger that anything under that, we don't look, we don't spend time. If the request from the
Okay,
fair
I
board
see-
is
I see
0
what
or
you're saying.
2%,
Yeah.
we're like, that's acceptable, we won't dive deeper. If it's 9%, we're gonna have to dive deeper and get explanations and justification.
Are we gonna still buy new equipment and operate?
I believe there will be, I mean, if we're at a 24%, I think we look at some drastic changes. If we're at 8%, I think, that changes, yeah, we can live through an 8% levy increase, if it's a 1 or 2 year deal, but if it's a double digit, I think you put everything on the table. Maybe you lengthen the patrol vehicles 1 more year. I mean, you want to have a good rollover of stuff. We can't let our equipment roll.
Well, this is
Well,
my
and
problem,
then
because
you
I'm getting
catch
a
it up
lot of,
later.
I don't know what you guys are, but I'm getting a lot of heat for our levy last year, and I'm just asking them, what did you expect? You know, look at inflation, look at our,
Well, and last year, I mean, and this year it's
Wage
gonna be
study.
a wage increase.
so what'd you expect? To me, I thought we did good. That's what I thought,
Yeah.
with what
I
we had,
agree.
I don't know, that's what I
Yeah,
thought.
no.
And so now I'm worried about what's coming, yeah, a guy was just chewing me out about this a couple days ago. And I'm like, well, sometimes you gotta spend money to make money, I don't care, you have to, you can't, well, it's not your money. I said, that's not the point, it's, you can't.
Did he say like what he thought we were spending too much money on?
Well, okay, wages is one thing, and I'm like, well, so do you think we should have a big turnover and lose a bunch of people? Because there's no money in that.
And you just say that, I can sympathize with that, because I think we did maybe more than we should have.
But how do we
But
do
when
that?
when you come in and you think you lose, and they think they lose, that's negotiations, like.
And now we don't have people leaving now. Things have changed, we don't have people leaving like they were.
So the employees is a compromise, and it's a balancing act, and it's difficult, and.
And the employees have a right to a good living also.
I think they do.
You know what I mean? Like just because you,
No, I think they do have a right to
you
a
know,
good living,
I
you're
mean,
right,
they,
Erica.
they fill a very important part in this county of,
It's what, 85% of our budget, employees?
Yeah, I'd say so, too.
And I also want good ones, I don't wanna lose
Yep.
our good
It costs
ones,
a lot of money to
that
train.
doesn't make any sense to
Yep.
me, to let them go somewhere else, so. But I don't know if I'm wrong, but that's how I think, and if I look at the county like I look at big companies are successful because of their employees.
I think
That's,
when you implement a wage study that you haven't had for 30 years, it's gonna cost you.
It's
I mean,
gonna be a shock.
It's gonna be it's gonna cost you to catch up to those that are underpaid, and then those that are overpaid, you can't cut them. I mean, so you're stuck with that.
Till it
and
catches
we-
up.
And we, that's where we're at. Now, it'll take a couple of years for that to catch up, and now if we continue on evaluating that annually, parts of your salary structure, then we won't hit that big, we should never have that big jump again unless everything goes up, I mean, whole society, so.
and we didn't have that many employees that were overpaid. I mean, I think the social workers were slightly above, but I don't think,
Yeah, there were some positions, but I wouldn't say a lot.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't know what percentage, but yeah, there were some that
There
were,
are a few,
yeah, there were
But
some that were.
what kicked us is the long-term employees all got another step, so
you know,
yeah.
that's,
They got
that's,
it.
that's an add-on.
Right. Yeah, no, there was no doubt,
So
it
that's
was a
where
huge
the
cost
mhm.
to get it up to
Study
speed.
cost us 5 to 6% levy increase.
I see
Just
it,
that.
it's just the way it is, and I don't know.
And I think sometimes the public, like, they see, they don't understand like the property taxes and the levy, and they just see that large amount, larger than what it used to, but they don't understand.
How it equates money-wise.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
correct.
Oh, yeah.
The last few years, that's what they're talking
That's helpful, thank you. I
Yeah,
think,
people just see the percentage and
They
think
see
their
the
taxes
percentage
are going up
number.
7%.
Yes.
versus
Get
what
back to
it-
then the budget processes.
Yep.
I would like to see what, all the positions and what percentage is paid by general fund dollars and then state or federal dollars. So if it's and then if that position is required match, or how those positions are required to be paid. And there's lots of positions, so some of them, and revenue associated with that position.
I was just gonna
Some
say.
of them are, if you cut the position, you're gonna lose money.
the revenue, yep.
So, I mean, those are significant.
Yeah, and I think it gets tricky, especially like, I think about the min-choices social workers, and they're paid up to 90% by the state reimbursed. So people say, oh, you're adding positions left, right, and center. Well, really, it's only 10% that we have to pay. However, on the other end of that, the 10% does add up at a certain point. So it's kind of that balancing act that,
But Ryan, I think, knowing that, which I don't know, and then getting that word out there, which I hope we would know, That
Yep.
would make sense. That would say you're getting a value at the county, but I don't know if I can, because I don't know that. I
Yeah.
don't know if I can even tell that to someone.
Well, I think overall human services is a huge misconception that,
Yeah,
that's a,
County funded.
yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is a big, and they think that it's all a waste, and it's just crazy what people say to me, and I'm like, who are you? What, you know?
I mean, it is still taxpayers' dollars.
It is
right? Like,
taxpayers'
it is,
dollars,
but
but-
it's not county levy dollars.
And,
Well,
but,
there's-
It's nothing, you
What is
know,
it?
we don't have control
7
over it.
million?
7 million, human services is 26% of our levied budget.
you know, but unfortunately,
And how much of
there's-
that is,
That's our $28 million in levy. 26% of that goes to human services. 40% goes to the sheriff, public safety, 19% goes to general to do what we do in this building, 6% is debt service, and 9% is highway, according to Mary.
Well, that team is sorry.
It's her auditor.
We know it's right. We know it's right.
Well, I asked, and she researched it, and that's what.
Idiot.
What-
Well, I just even thinking on the budgeting process, you know, with the loss of the STS program, you know, what is that going to look like for our county? And, you know,
it's still work that needs to be done.
it's still work that needs to be done, but it's no longer an STS program, so what do you do with that? Yeah. I don't think you can just let, well, most of it in the summer is Parks and Recs, but you know, what do we do with that?
STS program, from what I understood at the state, some counties don't use it at all, some use it moderately, we use it extensively. And
Oh, really?
really get good value out of it, we've always thought, correct?
Yeah.
A lot depends on the state employee that you had. If they're not decent, they let the program go. That's what you hear from other commissioners. Yeah, we had something that didn't want to do nothing anyway, so we just got rid of it.
Yeah.
We
Interesting.
have someone that's out there doing everything, so.
That's a real
what
benefit.
is our plan? Do we have a plan for that?
We'll get to it. But
So that sounds like one of the key drivers for the budget this year, one of the concerns you're looking to address in this one, okay.
How we still get the work done without the
Yep.
funding, yeah, but,
we're leaning. towards
well, it's gonna look
finding
different, it's
something.
gonna look different too, because we don't have an STS crew.
Cost us.
Well, and in human services, because human services is, I mean, that's all still mandated work.
Correct.
You know, that
Yes.
is work that still has to be done, it's just, is the funding still gonna be there and?
It's a big if with everything.
Mhm.
So I wanted to walk through quickly, and we don't have to do this. I think some of it's already actually coming out in this conversation, which is super helpful. But I wanted to walk through what you think is working well with the budget right now. We've talked a little bit about where there are limitations, and you've mentioned where there might be opportunities. And then we've already started talking about some of these challenges. But so I just have some questions that I'd like to ask all of you. So the first one, there are two here for strengths. What about your current process is working well from your opinion? And that can be timeline. There's no wrong answer here. I just wanted to kind of get a better sense of what you think is working
You're
well.
not talking about the county in general, what's working well in the county, you're talking about like our.
Budgetary process.
For the budgeting and fiscal planning processes, kind of what, from your eyes, what do you think is working well?
What I like, Becker County's base needs budgeting, so it's not, we don't automatically increase every position. It's what we need, we evaluate what we need and the costs that it'll take to get there. I think our department heads are, I think are pretty frugal. I mean, I think they come in, I mean, everyone wants what they, what they want, but I think everyone's fairly reasonable in their requests.
And I think we've had longstanding department heads, which I think they've been through the process a time or two.
They do fight for their own money,
Yeah, yeah, they do.
so we have to determine if it's a want or a need that.
Good, better, the other.
And we've had some people that were commissioners that were very,
Frugal.
yes. So they've helped shape this to where it's at now.
Okay, that's helpful. What other things do you think are working
No,
well?
can I hold on one second there, just a question? So if Barry, what you said, if 85% of our budget of that 28 million this year goes to employees, and we've got that wage study contract, that's
Union contract?
Yeah, the wage scale or whatever. If that's already spoken for, then we're only talking about 15% of the budget?
I'd say 20%.
Okay, 20% of the budget. So we're only talking about that much money that we define,
Unless you cut positions and people.
unless you cut positions and people.
That's why I increased it 20, because there is flexibility in some of these positions. I mean, we don't have to have all the deputies that we have. I mean, we don't have to have, we could have a half-time HR person instead of, 1.5 or 2. I mean, you can look, I mean, can we function well with that? That's the question you have. What are your gains and losses?
So, but the next question after that, if we believe those numbers are right, then, okay, then we get grant dollars and 90, 10, 75, 25. I mean, that comes out of our levy, not our wage levy, that comes out of that last 20%. And we've got a lot of those, right? Especially in social services.
Well, in social services, many, yes, there's grants in social services, but many of it is revenue generated. It's targeted case management, it's the
And they're required,
mid
most of those.
choices.
It's like billing,
Most of those
you're
are
billing for
required.
your services.
They're required services, yeah.
So they're supplementing them through grants, so they're not obligated.
Mhm.
So I guess what I'm getting to, when it comes down to it, I mean, there's not a lot of money left that we can dictate, except if you cut positions or cut programs. If they're mandated, you can't cut them.
Another thing is, highway you can cut.
Some people would,
A mandated?
Yeah, they don't fund it. It's mandated, they don't
it's an
fund it. You
unfunded
might be able to
mandate.
Do something about it.
And if
But,
it's mandated and unfunded, but you also have to think about
Yeah.
what is
What
the
is the
program.
program?
I mean,
Yeah.
some of these programs, if you cut something and you understaff child protection, you're putting the county at risk for
Yeah,
lawsuits.
that's
I mean,
not
if you cannot underfund some of these protection things, or you could be front page of the national news. I mean, you don't.
For sure, the Star Tribune.
It's certainly not worth
Especially if somebody
cutting some of
dies.
those
So
For
here's
vulnerable adults or for child protection. I mean, you have to protect those people. And if
And we have to, and that's, I really don't wanna see any positions cut,
No.
because this county is not getting any smaller.
Yep.
We're not, and so,
And we're
I,
not overstaffed now.
I don't think
I don't
that we
think-
are, but,
How do you know we're not overstaffed? How do you
Well-
know that one person can't do the job of two in social services and highway and anywhere? How do you know
Well,
that?
one,
you
I've
don't
been
know
there.
it. That's why you kinda depend on department heads.
and yes,
And good people. That's where you go back to don't cut their wages and don't treat them like crap, because you have good people, because there's no way. Barry knows probably more than anybody because he's been here so long, but
No, but
there's
I'll give
no
you-
way you
give
can
an
know
example.
if,
Commissioner Knutson brought that highway could cut one of their, technicians, some of their road design technicians, compared to for other counties, and we cut it. I did not support cutting it, but we cut it. So now, but there are times we contract out for services too, now to supplement that. So I mean, I think you can function, and I think we've done very well, but you're asking more for the rest of the employees, and they didn't cut them, I think we just didn't rehire at a time, and I think you can try it. There's certainly nothing wrong with saying, and if we end up contracting out more than what that would cost us, then you go back and say, well, let's finance it. Well, I'm not, and I think it's through attrition. I don't want to fire anyone, but through attrition. That's why it was kind of upsetting when we changed it back, so we're not examining new positions that are vacant. That's when we want to examine positions if there's a need for that.
Not filling a position that is
Correct.
emptied.
I mean, I don't want to go out and fire someone, our budget's here, we're gonna terminate. I mean, but when you have attrition, I mean, when when you have an open position, that's when I think you should take a look and say, yeah, this is obvious, we need this, no sense looking.
but I think also we depend on our department heads for that.
I think we really
If we
do.
depend on our department heads, we will be overstaffed,
Well,
guaranteed.
I think you have to watch them, but you have to put some faith in them. You hopefully have good ones, and because
Yeah, I
if
think
you,
we have great ones.
But
every great department head is fighting for their department to have everything possible at their.
If you trust your department heads, how would you ever know when to not take their opinion? If you trust your department heads, why are we here?
Well.
Well-
We make the decisions, right?
If you're gonna just blindly follow them, you have no
But-
business.
If you go the other way, okay, and if we talk about commissioners saying, you know, and one of the big ones was, human resources here, when Larry did not want that extra help. Do you remember this? And I supported the extra help, and he was so mad at Pat and calling Pat a bureaucrat, but I asked him, how do you know that they don't need any help? Nancy Urbanski was way behind on a lot of things and was not doing things accurate. Huh? Oh, we probably shouldn't. But, and I'm not saying it's her fault.
Yep.
It's just that how much can she do? And so so I'm not blaming her because but,
She was by
so
herself.
how do you know? How do I
So
know
when
if,
you're talking, we went from a 1.5 to 2.
yeah, and you know what? Now I'm not hearing none of the complaints that I was hearing before, and we couldn't hire people in time, and people were reaching out and not getting help, and everybody was so upset. And I think so, you know, I don't want to go back to that to find out that we were doing it wrong. So we really do have to depend on the professional people that have been doing this forever to help us, and we have good people, and
I think the commissioner's job is to hear that department head, hear the financial concern, and you have to weigh all your information. You're not just listening to the department.
No,
head
absolutely
to make a
not.
decision.
And-
But it's a big part of it, no question about
it
it.
has to be.
But if that's the only thing you're weighing on,
Well,
then there's no sense for you to go to
You know,
committee
Barry, I
meetings.
heard you last fall when we were going through the budgeting process. I heard you say, you didn't even know the numbers. You said, well, we can't do a 10% levy. Send it back to committees and get them to lower, to get the budget lower, which I don't disagree with. But you've got in your mind, I'm asking, not saying, do you have in your mind what a levy increase? Because I'm trying to weigh out what the taxpayer, I mean, I want to keep my taxes low too, and I think everybody in this county wants that. So when you said that, you already said we were going to cut something, or we weren't going to add anything to a certain level. Like you backtraced it. You weren't going, this is what we need, this is what we need. Okay, that's 11% levy. You said, nah, it was 9%. No, that's too high. We got to back it down and send it back to all the.
Well, if the commissioner is stuck at a certain percentage, the department heads would rather be the cutters than they have the commissioners.
Rather than have you cut it.
So,
if
say
you're-
that again.
So if I'm saying we're not gonna allow 10%, I need every department head to cut 3% out of their budget, they wanna be the ones cutting it. They don't want us to say, oh, this is what we're
Yep.
gonna cut.
Yeah, I
They
would agree
rather-
with that.
So that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would rather be the ones responsible for cutting in their department than having us just slash something. Because they know, they have opinions on what they can live without.
That makes a lot of sense.
I just want to add one quick thing and then you can move on, but, you know, I think in the budgeting, we've focused a lot on, since I've been here, a lot on employees and the wages. We've seen a lot of our tax dollars go towards that. But I think over time, one thing that's been neglected is that planning for those big things.
Capital budgeting.
Yeah, yeah. It's been reactionary, so that's, I think, been a struggle for you know, trying to look ahead and plan for boilers and those big things that you know you gotta replace.
You know what, Highway does a good job of that. They got snowplows, big things. Is it 12 years, Richard, 12 or 13 years?
On a
We
truck.
plan for a new snowplow. So they've got it in the works.
But they don't have their building plan for improvement. Boilers or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
hoist goes
Hoist-
out,
hoist
crane
goes
goes out. There's none of that.
Generator.
And it's gonna really be hard to have a capital improvement plan, because we don't have any money now.
But I'm just saying.
I'd like to plan for it, but I don't know how we're gonna do it.
You
but-
flip and you do this over
Well,
here and it's
So
hard
over the
to.
years, now I don't know, I'm not saying there was waste, but there was always, everything was budgeted for when I started. I mean, we had budget for abatements. So there was an abatement budget, which meant, so when abatements come in and you pay them out, we are budgeting, we had that budget for it. Now, I don't think there's any money for abatement, so when we have an abatement, it comes out of our general fund. I mean, it's just,
Correct.
there's no budget for it. So, I mean, things have been kept cutting back, so in the old days, there was always a significant general revenue monies that you could pay for a boiler, or you could, you know.
Where did that come from though? Or they just weren't as expensive or
What's that?
well, you said we always had money. What
Because
was it?
we were, the budgets were, what's the proper term?
Over budgeted?
They were, everything was budgeted for you, so there was always, revenue left, or there was always funds left in the general fund at the end of the year.
That you use for
So if
those
you didn't use all your
unexpected things.
abatements, you still had money in your general fund, so you take that money and, you know, so you'd spend it out of reserves, you'd buy a big thing out of reserves, because the reserves kept growing every year. That's how they were.
As a
budgeted.
taxpayer, I guess I would say, why the heck were you stockpiling money? Why didn't you just use your base needs budgeting?
Well,
But I think capital planning is very important to budgets.
That's where we're at now. There's not a lot of fluff in this budget. There's not, I mean, what did we end up with last year, a deficit? So, I mean, there's nothing,
Yeah.
there's no funds carrying over.
Which we knew that there would be.
That we knew it was.
Well, as we trim the
5,
budget
6
annually,
more, yeah.
there's nothing left to trim, you know.
But because we.
But didn't we budget that deficit in for this year?
You know, we
Part of it.
budgeted a deficit,
Tried
but
to.
some of that has to do with highway
Yeah.
funds coming in and out
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And we
Yeah.
spent money in NRM that the funds weren't coming in, and we just spent money out. So, I mean, you have to be careful when you say, yes, we deficit spent, but some of that was in funds that, you know, you have to know where the fund's coming in and out. It's not,
Yeah.
so you have to exclude those type of funds if you're gonna look at just your employees.
You know, Ryan, one thing too, that as we're talking about it, some things that have happened over the years, right, wrong, or indifferent, you know, the sheriff's building got sold, and that money did not stay in the sheriff's department. It kind of moved around, and that's been a source of, you know, Todd, and rightfully so. I mean, he thought that was in his budget, but it's happened in other areas too. I hear that.
Very, don't explode.
It goes in your general, I mean, he sold the building, yes, when we built the $14 million jail. I mean, it
Right and
got
wrong.
spent, I tell you.
Right or wrong, it keeps percolating to the top, and
Yeah, it
I
did
think it
get
was
spent.
probably how the
that
messaging went
department
out,
thought that
probably.
was their money.
And
Okay.
everybody
They could
thinks
spend.
different about
Well, and I think it's a bit of a struggle for, we'll say, the sheriff's department, maybe there's other departments too, where at the end of the year budget, if they think they're under, they think they still have money that's rolling with them,
Yep. Okay.
which is a struggle.
Yeah, well, we didn't spend it all last year.
Yeah, well, I should still have money left over. It's zeroed out, and people just really struggle.
Well, we took money from the recorder and sent it over to the museum. Well, we didn't, a few years ago. I mean, that happened. That's a fact, that happened. I mean, that put her in, I mean, something she didn't expect. I don't know how
She
it.
expected it, but they're protective of their monies.
Yeah,
These
and
monies-
you know what I would be too? I want our department heads to do good, try to do a good job. But when they do a good job, and then we see that pot of money there, as commissioners take it and use it
That pot of-
elsewhere where it's
the
needed,
recorder's money
we're supporting
is
the ones that
fees.
didn't do a good job.
Yeah, it's fees
Those
from,
are fees from recorded documents. There's
I know.
there's two.
Correct.
And they can only be spent on certain things. And right now, we have some of those funds being paid for employees. So, I mean, because.
We need to have that
we're a county
dialogue and.
We're a county that has a lot of those funds, because we have a lot of splits, a lot of recorded, I mean, so there's a lot of money that comes in Becker County. There's some counties that's minimal, there's nothing. So we have that, and we have to, if we don't spend that money, the state can come in and, I mean, I know you don't think this is a possibility, the state comes in and say, oh, you guys got too much money here, we're gonna just pull some. They can do it.
State can do that?
Yep.
Absolutely. They were talking at one point that counties that had too high of reserves, they were gonna come in and take that money. That was maybe 10 years ago. They were saying, oh, these counties aren't budgeting correctly. These counties have no debt. I mean, Lacaparo County was one of them. Todd Patzer, he was like, we're gonna lose we pay cash for when we do stuff. That's the philosophy of that. That's like, and you're gonna punish them for that? So you do not want, you don't want those funds to go too high, in my opinion.
But certainly,
And if we can find a place to spend them, like the gravel tax money, we can find places to spend those, those most restricted funds are the ones you want to spend first. That's my opinion. So,
But I think that we don't want to, department heads and places that do things well, we don't want to, like La Capara, we don't want to come in and say, hey, we're going to take that and use that over here. I think we don't want to, you're just condemning the state for coming into La Capara County. I mean, we're the state coming into a department head and say, hey, as we see you got some excess there, we're going to take it and use it over here. We don't want to do that.
But you know, like that.
Not without a long runway of saying, hey, we're thinking that we'd like to.
well, we will have to fund that department. But what makes a difference if we fund the recorder's office, if we fund the copying of the files with general fund money or with, recorder fund, what's the name of all the funds? What makes a difference
Yeah.
which fund we approve?
Most restrictive, I would.
We approve whatever goes on in there, whether it's spent on this
Technology.
fund or this fund.
There we go. Technology fund.
And if it is doing good, I'm in agreement, and we need it. We'll just have to take it and use it. That's, you know, nobody wants that to happen.
I mean,
but,
those are funds generated by taxpayers' fees.
yeah,
Right.
so,
It's
And they're
not,
restricted.
it's not money out of their pockets that they've contributed.
and they feel that it is.
Yeah, it is. But, well, because they've worked and the fees have
Yeah.
come and generated out of their department by the direct work that they've done.
But you gotta move it, and everybody does the same thing. If you're a business, you're gonna do the same thing. Just because you made some money over here with this thing, doesn't mean you can't buy this thing and replace
Yeah.
this thing,
Yeah.
and we have to be able to do that.
The DMV they make money for the county. So they make money. They don't keep that money. That doesn't stay with them. I mean, we recognize that they make money, but that goes right into the general fund. I mean, to offset other things.
They're just used
And if
to
we
it.
lose money there, strong possibility we give it up. Let the state do it all.
I was just gonna say, and that's a perfect example of when you talk about staffing and you talk about wanting to keep adequate staffing, you don't wanna jeopardize
Another thing the
service.
county does, passports. We don't have to do passports.
Right.
And there's strict rules on passports that we have to have separation of duties on that. At some point, is it worth doing? Now, it's a service to our people that are here in Becker County. So it's a service that we're saying, we recognize this is something that's needed. But we recognize that it costs everybody money to how to do it, so.
I mean, it probably costs us an employee, because you can't do certain things if you do that.
Yeah, but it's still really nice to have that
It is nice
service
to
there,
have it.
because
Oh,
you can
absolutely.
go right there and get that. And somewhere else, that can be a real pain in the
Yep.
rear end to try
That
and
is
get
true.
it. These people do good at getting it for you, so
Well, especially the first time, because you have to have a copy of birth certificate, and that's where, for
Yeah.
our old residents, that's where you have to go.
I think they even took my picture up there when I got it. Don't they? Did they?
They
Yeah,
did.
took
Yeah, I
it.
got
Yeah,
mine up
they
there.
took care of everything. I didn't know
Yeah, it
nothing
was very
about it.
smooth.
And
Very,
I
very
went in
smooth.
there and, yeah, they took care of everything,
Yeah, they'll
so.
take the picture.
But that's
That's
I'm
perfect.
90% sure it's a money-losing business.
Yeah,
Probably.
but especially for people like me who struggle with something that's not a big deal to somebody else, but I don't like trying to deal with the government for anything. And I don't.
There's our
I
government.
There's a little level of irony there, but I love it, so.
Brian, are we through strengths here, or?
I think we're just about done with strength. The one thing I did want to say though is what I'm hearing is also that having a list of kind of the mandated functions of the county in like one list where they're funded, and then also like the passport piece, that's not mandated, but it sounds like it's a function that you're willing to fund and support because it's worth the value to the people you serve in this county. At my county, we have a document called the Mandates and Core Functions, and it's a list of what's regulated by the state of what we have to do.
I mean, that's something we got from, or I asked for that from social services to. kind
Yeah,
of-
that's just human services.
Yeah, so this is kind of similar and this
It'd be
feels.
nice to know that for every department. I mean, assume social services is the big one, but.
Yeah, so we have it, we can probably also, I can take the template from Washington County and we can walk it through with all of you and update it, because there are some fields that we have about how much things are cost, and if it's a 90-10 state split, if it's levy funded, that might be something that might be helpful too, so that when you make some of those hard decisions of, oh, this isn't mandated, let's cut it. Well, no, it's
That would be
funded
very
90% by the state, it's not gonna save you a ton of money.
Yeah, that would help me a lot.
Okay. I can,
The other thing is too, is if a position is if there's a grant to fund that position, are we required to fill it as a full-time
Yep.
part, you know?
Yeah, so what are the requirements of having the position? Does it need to be, yeah,
Receive the grant funding.
exactly.
You know, what happens when grants end? They're usually a term on them, like a 3-year term. Do they re-up them in social services, or do they go away, or what
Some of
happens?
It depends.
Depends, yeah.
Most of the time,
We
they
hinged employment
re-up
on-
them, but
on grant
now
funding.
things are changing, so.
Well, and
But if it goes 3 years, commissioners don't remember that.
No,
And
I
there's
wouldn't.
there's some grants that you're allocating so much money, but you
No,
have
do
to
you want more?
spend it to get it, or you have to, and spend it can be like your time entry, so you draw down funds through, brass codes in the system, that then they'll pay you to draw down that grant money. So sometimes it's not just you get this much money, and it's the $100,000
Sometimes I
in
think
it,
they
you have
make
to.
these things so confusing as for me to just say, do whatever.
That's like the
I feel that
$5,000.
way with a lot of these decisions because
The
they're so complicated.
$5,000 prevention services allocation that we just gave to Cornerstone at our last board
Uh-huh,
meeting,
yeah.
that's one of those that you have to spend and show how you're gonna spend it to get it. Like, you're allocated X amount of dollars, but you don't just get it.
You get reimbursed on the backside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we've been talking about this a little bit the entire time, and I've been trying to take notes as best I can, but I wanted to focus on where do you see that there are weaknesses? So what areas could be improved upon in the budget development and fiscal planning process?
This capital
I
plan.
would say for sure capital.
Capital
Yeah.
planning? Okay.
Yeah.
For big, because I feel like even in the short time I've been here, we kind of jump, if somebody's complaining about, we jump over there and try to solve that problem. Something with a runway, like, oh, we've got money for the boiler, and tell Brent here, after a 12-year boiler, where you're 14 already and don't have the money to do it. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
And I think
we
some
collected
building
for that.
planning, right now we have, the jail that,
I think you got space and building. What do we have for building assets? What can be reused or repurposed, probably is a better word. And what, at the end of the day, what do we really need? I was just going to say, I think another area that I'm hearing consistently with the budgeting process where I think we can improve, I think these commissioners all are on their sitting committees, and then we have 2 on the finance, but what I'm hearing is probably more for all of them to get all of the budgeting information versus just by committee. Is
Yeah.
that what,
Yeah.
more work sessions perhaps through
Yeah.
that process? Yeah.
I mean, like, the committees, and I still think it needs to go to committee, but I think it needs to be reported to the board somehow. Especially right now, because we might have some decisions we have to make.
well, I think, for the first 2 years on the board, that I was on the board, you don't get a lot of the budget information,
No,
especially for me, only
Unless
being on
you-
Human
unless you're on
Services
the
Committee,
committee,
unless
yeah.
you're on the committee, and then
yep,
at the levy, and then really you're just
looking at it like, oh,
like,
yeah, the first time it's like, oh.
so,
And this year's gonna be extra difficult because we're gonna have to figure out what costs are gonna be passed
Yeah.
on to us and,
Yeah.
I mean, from AIS, and I think, how are we gonna respond to some of those, cuts from the state, STS, AIS, Human Services, all of the requirements, and how much are they gonna cost? Or do we just include those in, maybe separate those out in the budget process, saying what this will add for all employees, this will add, for the, what's that? No,
That is until the next.
the safe one and the.
Oh,
Oh,
the state
safe-
family
uh,
leave?
Yeah.
Oh, the
Yeah.
family medical
Paid
leave.
family leave and
Paid
safe,
family.
so this will add, this year, we'll get this percent increase for every employee. I mean, we probably won't,
Is it a 1% payroll tax?
we'll just probably have that as a side note. This 1%
Yes,
is
that's
this
point.
program right here.
28, okay.
So 1% of this levy increase is this program that the state mandated, or, so some of those,
separate it out more, to be more transparent
to
with,
show, this
Yeah.
is the
Where
show
it's
from the
coming
state's,
from.
this is the
That's a
state's
good
balanced
idea.
budget is costing you this
This
much
much
on your
money.
local taxes.
I think that's a very good
I think
point,
that
Barry,
does
and that's
need to have it split.
so
out.
important because it's
Well, we
it's
have-
not only gonna hurt us,
Is the-
that paid family leave, but it's gonna hurt.
Paid family.
Small
Every-
businesses.
Everybody around here is really gonna get a kick in the rear end from that.
Everything I've heard says.
And
It
I
does
don't
sound
think
like
people
there's some,
understand
um,
it.
It does sound
With
like
one of our
there's
groups, we
some
do have-
Because
discussion
before
with
they had
the
an option to
tentative
have.
deal that they came up with
Yeah,
to
we
the
haven't
guys,
seen
that there
any
may be
signs
some
that they'll- they'll-
exemptions
hearing.
for smaller businesses, but they haven't released what that looks
But
like.
even our
Not
big
for us,
businesses
but-
are really gonna suffer
Mhm.
if people abuse this system, and people abuse every system that they come up with, so I don't know how we're gonna, I don't know how we're gonna survive it, but.
Paid family. That's all gonna be controlled by the state.
Yeah, that's the scary part.
That's, yeah, they're gonna decide if you get it or not, if the employee gets it or not, or whatever,
Yeah, I think some of the long-term employees that have, this is my opinion only, but I think some of the longer-term employees, if they have a medical need, that they have to go out, and if they have time, I don't know, I feel like they're gonna take, because again, the one thing in there, if you do that paid family leave, your para payments stop
yeah. Yes,
while you're on leave.
correct.
A lot of people that are really vested into those, they don't want to see
Yep,
that stopped.
Yeah, then there's other people who don't care.
and many of them
They
have this.
look at it like, you know,
I
I
have
don't
a
have to
couple-
work.
So you could
I'm
just
gonna
leave
get
it status
paid.
quo, and it's
A
a
lot.
percentage, I mean, it's like unemployment, so.
And I love
You're
the
right.
fact that it's cost me 8.88%.
I think one of the weaknesses, the top weaknesses, is this capital improvement plan. Like, I think that's,
Yeah,
does anybody get anything else, Barry? I mean,
and then the, I would say
Do you
that,
agree with that or not?
Yeah, that,
and I would also say
the problem is, the problem is funding.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
that's been the problem.
That's also a
Yeah.
weakness, is funding it, how do we fund
I
it?
mean,
Yep.
we can fund it with a bond payment, but initially, but we're gonna have to pay that back.
Yeah.
And then keep that in our budget for long.
Either you got to
We're gonna have
budget
to
for it,
steal
or
a
you got
little
to
bit
borrow.
from everybody.
That's your option.
Those are your plan. Yeah.
And then, also too, is the information that all of us get, that are, the information that the commissioners get that are not on the committees, budget information,
Mhm.
that, we can solve that pretty easily, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That would be a definite.
Do you think, this is just a way out there idea, but, you know, I know we do our finance the day before board. Would it be helpful if we looked at, in the budgeting cycle, doing that as a full board work session the day before board, or would you not want to do a separate day?
I've been curious. I don't have a clue what
I mean,
goes
we
on
could
in
do
that
it-
meeting, and I
I-
wondered.
Finances,
I mean, no money, no mission.
Yeah.
I'd
But
like
that's
to know
really
how the
where
money
we
flows.
have focused
I
the
would
budget
say-
stuff.
I would look at your agendas on the board meeting. If they're not a full agenda, just do it during board meeting.
Well, we've had pretty full days.
I know, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. If it's a full day, then you could plan something out other than.
I mean,
But start there first, is that what you're saying? Okay.
And then the other, I think a bullet point of each department, a real short synopsis of where each department's at, maybe for commissioners that, that aren't on.
yeah, I don't,
You know,
I
that would
agree with
help
that,
us.
yeah.
Where their
I mean,
budget is.
when you get
Yeah.
the full,
I don't, the full thing
It's
is
a
not
little
necessary.
overwhelming.
it's
Yeah.
hard to
Just
figure out.
where are we at?
But if you got just a quick one-liner saying, this is where we're at and.
Well, and sometimes I wonder too, like, we talk with, the departments and they have this much budgeted. Well, what is included in that budget? Like sheriff's department.
You
has
have this line
much-
item for,
Yes. like,
whatever.
What is your intentions for that line item?
and how does that add up to that number?
Yeah, and that's something I guess that we don't typically get at the board level. We just get, this much money for this line item, but we have no idea like what is their intention for that money.
Most of the time
like-
you look at.
Yeah, I think you and I
Increases.
talked briefly about that, yeah, with our cycle too, with our, even helpful to the department heads to have, I know we, this line item's $10,000, here's what we need in
Yep.
this line item.
Yep,
So for our,
5,000 for this, 5,000 for that. whatever
for our
that was.
departments that are making money, like the landfill, zoning, recorder, can we tax them for this capital improvement plan, a percentage? Like
Tax
take
them.
some of
like
their.
put an additional tax.
Yeah,
on.
take a little bit out of their, what they're making. They pull in, some of these pull in some pretty good money.
Right,
But-
Robin Peter to pay Paul.
I know it, but either that or we borrow, like, we get a bond like you say. But it seems like if you can steal it out of there,
steal
and
it.
put it over here. Well,
Leverage it out of there.
you know, then if you can do that, and if we were fair about it and I don't know how else we're gonna get
We're
it.
already budgeting those revenues.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're new revenues, they're old revenues that we've already.
They're already part of
That
our
money is
budget.
budgeted?
They're already, revenues part of our budget.
Yeah, we're using them
We have a revenue
within.
budget over here
Mhm.
that offsets our general.
Really?
That's like in human services, we estimate about how much targeted case management we're gonna get every year. So that's part of the revenue that's coming into human services to offset.
But once again,
that.
they're not gonna want to, human services isn't gonna wanna fund a boiler in this building, right?
No.
No, but
what I'm-
that's
not
why
what
you have to
that-
take it from them.
But that's what I'm saying, you're robbing.
I'm not-
You're not making,
Well-
creating more hassle and bookwork than
And
anything.
then if we're gonna deficit spend, then it doesn't matter, then that money's gonna go to that anyway.
You know, here's another question for you. So 6% of our budget is bond service, which I've looked into our bonds. We did a great job. Whoever was there did a great job on that. But 6% of our budget of that 28 million goes to bond service or to debt service. What are we willing to do? I know, Barry, you're floating that bond thing here, and I'm not for it or against it yet. But what is a level that we would be
Like a comfort level?
comfortable with?
Oh.
Ryan, do you know what other counties?
We're low.
I don't know, but I can do some research for you about where people are at. I
I
think,
didn't know what to think about that number.
I
The
think-
bonds that we did were very
DL
good,
was-
but
theirs was just in
Yeah.
anyway.
percentage.
I
it's
think
something
that's a pretty
concerned.
low number.
One thing for a weakness too
What was
is
theirs?
meeting length.
Is it 9?
We went 4 hours at our last
It
meeting.
was double digit.
We gotta get our meetings
You
down.
think that's long?
Yeah,
I know,
think
you
you're
said
right,
you used to go
yeah.
into the afternoon, but I mean,
Is it
I look at these meetings
11.92?
and go,
Number
they're
six
too-
is
they are-
for some reason.
They're short.
It was in the paper.
I mean,
What'd you
some,
report?
we get into longer meetings now,
DL,
obviously you can
what
see
they
a
were
bunch of
doing
talkers
for
like.
Bond,
budget.
budget
Yes.
for the bond.
But if you don't sit and, I mean, if you want a consent agenda for your whole,
I
Yeah,
think
we
we're
are.
low as
you're not
6%.
No.
listening, you're not hearing other, I mean, a good leadership is team leadership.
but I'm saying 4 hours, Barry, I mean, people are just staring at the sky. If you want something passed, put it as the last item on the agenda, yeah, whatever, move on. 4 hours in any meeting is too long, in my opinion.
I agree with you, Phil.
I've never, these meetings, they're so diverse, they're so different.
Yeah.
I've never been bored. I want to get out of here sometimes, but I've never been bored. People go, how do you sit through those meetings? These meetings are so involved. I've never, if it's a topic that I've never thought, oh, that's.
I'm gonna start bringing my lunch and I'm gonna eat it right up there at the thing.
So, I mean,
Bring a
if you
pizza
have
oven.
topics that need to be discussed, I have
Well,
meeting length.
one thing I've done is, in the consent agenda, when I have questions, I'll call the department heads on Monday, so I don't have to ask that question on Tuesday and take up meeting time. Because, I mean, they're simple questions, I don't want to have to move it around and discuss it in front of the group if you guys already know. And actually, last meeting, some of the things we brought up, I had asked the previous day, I already knew the answer to it. But that's one thing, 4 hours is too long for me, I mean,
How
2 is.
about Nate? Did he know him?
Oh, no, I was gonna say, from the newspaper standpoint, the more the better, because you look through it and I.
Nate, you were sleeping in the last meeting too, so. Well,
But
okay,
If you talk about it, it's recorded online, people watch this stuff.
Yeah.
If you have everything decided before you come to this board meeting and
It's not
it's
good.
done, no one will trust you.
I don't
And-
have-
And Nathan's been around when everything was, it was a short meeting and things were decided, and you can tell at a board meeting if things are decided beforehand or not. I mean, you can, if it's a topic that needs discussion and it goes through just like that, the conception out for the public is, well, that was a done deal before
fair
we got
point,
here.
fair point,
So-
okay.
That's what the city does, but they have another meeting, a committee of the whole, where they actually talk about everything, and then it's the actual meeting that.
They have committee of the whole at every committee meeting. Every committee meeting, the city has their committee of the whole. Every council person can go to any committee all the time.
But-
It's ridiculous to
But
there's
committee of
9
the
of them.
whole, for me to go to social services and know something about social services, which I don't know anything about, I kind of depend on Erica to know what's going on there. She's on the committee and it's very complicated.
I depend on Richard.
Yeah, because I really know human services,
But-
but
Maybe there's some value to
If
that.
you want, I mean, if you want to go and sit in on those meetings, we can arrange that so you can have committee of a whole at those meetings anytime you
Or
want.
if you wanted to sit in for me and learn, you know, I'm a commissioner that'll move out of the way and let you sit down there
Well,
for
I
the
mean, we do
week.
post those, I mean,
You know, Richard,
You
you were,
could.
me and you were on highway. Barry sat in for you on highway one time. Barry, you asked 10 questions that I wouldn't even considered, which were good questions, but my mind frame wasn't there. Off some other way. Hey, have you thought about this? That was very valuable for me to hear. I'm like, oh, I never thought of it that way. So.
Yeah, well, you'll have to learn a little bit. That's part of him being here for 20 years so that he can ask those
I
questions.
sat on highway for many years too, so.
So, and that's where you will get, because I thought I would never be able to understand anything, and now by accident, I'm starting to understand things here. But,
I would agree with Richard. It's something that just comes with experience.
and it really is a
And
lot.
Trying to figure out how to look at things and.
Well, I thought you were doing this by accident.
Nope, it was for real.
This is a fun group.
Yeah, you should have been here a couple years ago. So you was like,
no, we're not going back to that.
Current state is fun. Are there any other weaknesses that folks would like to bring up or things that we can improve upon? I know that we've talked about them a lot, so I have them peppered in other places, but are there any other things? One thing that I heard is also justification or data to back something up. So I think the HR example is helpful of people were unsure about it and you supported it, and then it sounds like now that you have data to say, oh, they're actually on time, they're able to hire people. Do you get information like that when you're making budget decisions often, regularly? Is that something you'd like more of?
I think you've asked for it, but I think it looks different by
Okay.
department.
I think we hear some of this, the HR as an example. We hear it when something comes forward, like now we're updating policies or so. Now we have time
Yeah.
to go through some policies that have been outdated. So, I mean, that helps you justify, yes, I can see where we have policies that were so outdated. You know, and policies are very important. If something happens, you have to go back to policy and then who's.
Definitely.
But I also think like with equipment, I think of all, I mean, we spend a lot of our meetings on equipment for various departments, which I think is great, but it, like, did they know that was what they were gonna budget for? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, did they know?
Why now?
Yes, so that's where I think it would be helpful for us to know in the highway department, we need whatever this year, and in NRM, we need this, and sheriff's department, we need this, so that when it comes to the board, then we know
So you're,
it's budgeted.
so highway does have a 5-year plan for their budgeted equipment. But sometimes they'll say, we gotta decide on this pickup, we either gotta put 20 grand into it or buy a different
In
one.
New York.
So they'll rotate things around.
Mhm.
But they are, I mean, and the sheriff's department too, I think, not quite to that extent, has, squads and equipment budget for it.
Budgeted for it, but do we know how many they plan to budget every year?
5.
Like,
You guys
like,
are on the committee.
like the
But does the
details,
board,
the details.
yes.
You're asking how often do they roll over some of these things?
Yeah,
But they have a regular,
Right, but she wants to know what they are.
what they are.
Capital
They have a
improvement
regular.
plan for each department to have that. I would like to see a dashboard, if it's possible and not super egregious, for each department to know these things.
Like a master list of.
Like a dashboard, just a one-stop shop, if it's possible, because I'm not on social services. Hey, Erica, what does this mean over here? Oh, that's for this, even in the meeting time at breaks, we could figure some of it out.
The other thing with vehicles too, each department vehicles.
Yeah,
yeah.
but that would be part of the capital improvement plan. Are vehicles in that, Ryan, or capital improvement plan?
They can be.
It can be.
It depends on what you all want to include.
Hey, I see you got a squad coming up next year. Have you,
Well, I mean, like, just passenger vehicles for departments, zoning, and, we tried to go with enterprise, but they misquoted, or they quoted us things that were higher price than we could do it ourselves, and we called them on it. Oh, that was just a mistake, so we just kind of didn't have a lot of faith in
Yeah.
the numbers.
I can see why.
Well, and I think we're kind of, to be honest, we're leaning, to your point, Barry, I think we're leaning towards that again by department because we have our carpool, our fleet out here, and because there was always kind of that internal zoning needed during their busy season, they needed 2 vehicles, assessor's office needed, and then that was kind of like, who checks it out? And so I did go and assign 2 to each department. So we're trying that specifically, so it's almost going back to their specific vehicles for their departments.
Any other weaknesses that we haven't talked about yet? I want to make sure I include them in the list.
Sure, there's some, but we just drawing blanks now.
Well, and if anything else pops up, feel free to let me know. I have my contact information up at the end, so if you want to call me or send me an email or talk to Carrie.
Yeah, for me, I think one of the things is balancing external commitments with internal, because I think this county has been very generous and supporting community things, which is great, but I think that's going to be a struggle.
That might have to,
What did you say, external?
External supports, commitments,
versus
yeah,
internal?
museum, different things like that.
yeah.
Internal
Or
budgeting,
internal, we gotta take care of anyway, so external commitments is what you're saying.
right.
Well, would the airport be considered an external commitment?
Yes,
Yeah.
That's under what she's discussing here.
yeah.
That,
We got airport, we got museum, we
library.
got library. I
Like,
mean, there's a lot of things that we
Airborne.
support, which are
Okay.
good community things, but
So we put $1 million, whatever, the county put $1 million into the museum, what is our commitment from that point going
It's our
forward?
museum. It's Becker County.
That's a
Museum.
county asset? It's not on the county list of insured.
I think they carry their own insurance.
Yeah, they do, I think they got their, well, there was that, I think
they have
they
a
do.
board
have their own
there.
insurance,
MCIT wouldn't
It is
insure it. There's no-
Correct.
That's right,
It's a
yeah.
county, it's a county asset.
But they're not county employees.
No, they're
They're
not.
a museum, of course,
Yeah.
yeah. Just like Sunnyside's a county owned, but they're not county employees, they're Sunnyside.
They're
yeah, we're getting towards the end of the deed grant for the reporting and such.
Didn't know that.
We were the pass-through for the deed.
Do they get, at Sunnyside, do they get a para though?
Do they get what?
Para?
They do all their own stuff, so I don't
I don't
know.
know what they do. I don't know what they've done.
Yeah.
I thought
know-
they did,
I know they have.
but they're union,
retirement.
aren't
They have retirement, but I don't know if it's
Oh, they're
parent.
not
I,
union?
No, they're not.
I
union.
would say, I don't know if they do para.
Peggy, I would like a
Retirement.
list of our external
Gotcha.
commitments. I don't even know that. I mean, is DMV an external commitment?
No, they're-
I mean,
No.
No,
just
they're,
because they're in this building?
there are
They're under-
county
there are-
departments.
Counties.
They're county employees.
They're
Yeah, they're
out-
county
I'm
employees.
talking where we allocate money.
Yeah, no, I
okay,
get it.
Okay.
Yep.
I
I'm just trying to figure out what all those things are.
Well, I listed, yeah, like the museum is a big one.
Food pantry.
Food pantry, yeah.
Yeah, Food pantry, yeah.
All right.
This isn't budgeting necessarily, but we have a weakness in social media presence. It's not a budgeting thing, but I don't know if we budget something for them, because
I agree with you.
90% of the information out there is through social media. I hate,
Sadly true.
but it's social media with the paper too.
But
I mean,
your paper's on social media. too.
I read the papers on
That's
my
right.
I read them
phone,
too.
on
So do I.
electronic.
But I think those are some of the things where you could do some educational things.
Yes, some transparency, some this is why, this is.
I always wanted to do like departmental, like spotlights about what they do.
Like, who officially is in charge of the website?
Our Facebook?
Julie,
Yeah.
or
Or let's say, not website, Facebook.
Sheriff has his.
Sheriff has his own, public health has their own, and then we had the county one.
Peggy does it.
Peggy, I should
Peggy
say-
and Amanda, I think.
Peggy.
Or is it you?
Yeah, each department has, like the sheriff has their own, human services has their own, land use has their own, but Amanda and I do the Becker one.
Interesting.
I think especially with all the property value, all that, like, there could have been so much information that could go out to educate, like, why property values were so high and why,
Why it happened, yeah.
and how that, because again, everybody sees that their property value went up, so then they think their
Their
taxes
taxes
are
went
going
up.
up. And they don't understand, I mean, they likely are, because the piece of the pie has gotten bigger, but it doesn't mean if they go up 20% that your taxes are going up 20%.
You know what?
That's the same thing with the levy too.
For 101, I asked that they go through that whole presentation, and the guy, the assessor from Hennepin, came in, did a really nice job. I'll bet you we could get his
Well, I would
slides and put them out there. It was really informational, and
think that
it
they
really
need to
helped.
have more out at the AMC, at the
There's lots of,
county.
there's lots of
there is.
stuff on that.
Mhm.
It's out there.
We've shown AMC slides before and on explaining that.
I think,
No, but I mean for commissioners,
oh, for commissioners. okay.
like at the annual conference would be
Okay.
good to have a couple.
Well, and I think, you can do, sometimes you just don't hit the right people or, trying to get them
If you
about
did at
trying to.
AMC, that 90% of them would be like, are you serious? What- we're gonna go through this?
A breakout session?
Well, you can do a breakout session. but
I did
think
it at
that
101, and
Oh, no,
Well-
not a keynote, I meant
Yeah.
breakout.
You would wanna be specific.
Barry, I would bet that half those commissioners would learn something in that, no matter how long they've been on. Just by going by 101, and 101 wasn't just the first time commissioners there, there were a lot of
Have you
people.
taken the class? Are you,
Which class?
101?
no, the, board of,
No, I need to do that, maybe that's why I'm.
Oh, the,
the assessing class?
yeah, I did.
Oh.
I took it for the township online, but it's not as in-depth as.
It's not really that in-depth.
If you guys do hire a public relations person,
Oh, we're not.
It's not the budget.
if you do though, I think it'd be nice if I could still talk to the department heads. Some of these governments try to run everything through their PR person who doesn't really know much.
That, yeah, you
We're
do
not doing
lose
that.
the
It's
details
difficult
probably.
for them.
I don't think we're big enough for.
But if you have something you want out there, like
Opportunities.
a better explanation, I'll work with you on that.
Yeah.
I think well, you did a really nice job in the veteran service and highlighting that with
Yeah.
Tony, but I would like to see that with our departments.
Each department.
It's surprising, people
I
don't
think-
know how the taxes work. I'm just like,
But-
I
but I
explain
think
it
just
all the time, and I'm
highlighting
like,
what they do, I think would be
it's
helpful for
not
people to see,
how it is, but
especially going into budgeting, when people don't know.
So we've got about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure that I respect all your time because you're super busy. So I've already compiled a list of some of the opportunities. Some things we talked about, like having departmental overviews and a dashboard, some of those mandates and core functions. What other things do you think, ideas or things you've heard from other places that you think we want to try that could improve the budget process here? Are there other things that we haven't talked about yet that you'd like to explore?
I got two things I think are opportunities. They're kind of countywide, but NRM, I think the opportunity to expand primitive campsites and stuff like that around the county is an untapped potential. People come to Detroit Lakes because of recreation. That isn't going to change. I'm not saying there are other assets, there are other things here. There's farming, there's sport, there's everything else. But that would be a way to bring people in. And we can do that through NRM, through creating some campsites. The other thing is the fair. I think we don't use the fair enough. I'd like to see us have a meeting, a commissioner meeting at the fair so people can see what we do. I don't know if that's possible. I've talked to Highway about maybe getting a snowplow truck down there and let some little kids climb on it, sign their name on a
Drive it.
snowplow, and just do some outreach things. That's our opportunity at the fair, to do outreach things. At the very least, I think, do we have a booth there or something?
We have
Public health always has one.
public health,
Sheriff
sheriff.
has one.
Yeah, we usually have.
Last year, we had one for Toad Mountain.
Soil and Water
Yeah.
is partnering with the DNR, that they've been there every year.
Yeah, they do that.
We actually have a very high presence in there.
Okay, but just to,
We've had snowplows down there in the
to
past.
have them at that,
Oh,
yeah.
have you? It hasn't, I don't think it's been since I've been here.
Okay, I just thought that was a.
It's usually not enough room to be inside, because they're that big, and there's usually little tractors and stuff in there.
I was thinking of the kids climbing in and out. We'd have to have somebody there to make sure they're safe, but then have a snowplow, have the kids use a marker to sign the snowplow or something, or whatever, just some fun
And then a
things.
sandblaster to blast off a fatty and.
But,
Checks and
you know,
balances.
these are our future employees. I mean, to get them interested now, every other organization tries to go to the school and get, why aren't we doing something that isn't gonna cost us a lot? It's, it's the Becker County Fair. Let's have a bigger presence there. And like I said, you have.
Environmental's been really big out there, and the sheriff's department's been really big,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
soil and water, and,
Public health always has one,
yeah.
Yep.
because they always have a breastfeeding.
Yep.
commissioners sometimes have them. I gave out suckers last year.
All right.
What other opportunities to improve the budget process do you think we might want to try or explore that we haven't talked about just yet? And that's okay if you don't have any other ones, because there's about 80 in here.
No.
Food?
Dashboard would be big for me, so I can just get a synopsis of how things are going. And I think it's in all the numbers that we get, but just to have like the same, so you're looking at the same type of report from every department,
Okay.
for me anyway. But like I said, I think it's all there. It's just so hard to compile and put together in your mind.
Now, are you saying a dashboard when they submit their budget, or are you also saying a dashboard
No,
every quarter?
Quarterly,
Okay.
monthly, I mean, they must be doing it anyway, just to see something like that. And listen, I don't want to make busy work for them. I want to know the stuff that's going to help me make better decisions or ask fruitful questions to.
So do you
Eric.
mean like, where they are with, like, human services, we get one every quarter now, I think, where it says, this is where they're at, this percentage of their
Percentage of the
revenue,
year.
this percentage of the
Even that-
expenditures, like
Even that
just,
would be good,
or are you thinking like every line item?
high level.
But you're talking like the percentage where a quarter into the budget, you should be at 25% or
And
whatever.
if you're
And my budget's at
150% into it
24%,
in
so yeah, pretty
June,
good.
what's
That-
the reason? Just, you know, like, oh, we haven't received that grant money. You know, it's simple, it's
Yep.
simple answers, just preparation for budgeting,
Mm-hmm.
for me, in my mind.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. That's a good one.
And like I said, I think the information's all there, it's just in different forms for each department.
It's not all together all the time. Yep.
But I think you could set up some consistent categories like personnel and other main categories and have things roll up. Whether that's divisions or units, there's a way to do it that you can have that. We're just setting that up at my county, so I can probably pull some of our templates for you.
The thing I think we should find out as early as possible, the employees increase, so the employee effect on the budget as soon as possible. Because that can be, you know, that's
With
pretty.
the 3.5. the
With
COLA.
our, we have an increase and the lane change with current employees. Now, there's gonna be fine tuning, but if you can see that number right as soon as possible, it gives us a handle.
What that impact is to the budget, is what you're saying.
So that's our basically starting point.
I think the other thing, which isn't relevant this year because we are under contract, is historically, our contracts have always passed after budget time.
Yes.
So
We're
we're,
not doing that again.
yes,
Say that again, what?
the budgets aren't approved
We're
or
gonna go out for
passed
an RFP, and
until,
they can try to get.
like, budget expires the end of this year, but we don't approve, like, we're not done with union negotiations until
We're estimating.
middle
budget
of the
for
following
employees.
year after the budget's expired. So we need to be better about starting negotiations
It
earlier.
never
Okay.
works.
No,
But
it's-
you guys approved the preliminary budget in December, right?
Well, we approved the
But you're
preliminary
saying-
one in September.
September.
So we have to know, have a
Preliminary.
estimate.
So we don't have, the employees are not they're working under the old contract a lot of times when you're doing your budget process, so you don't know what that pay increase is. So she's saying,
All right.
get the employee's contract signed prior to
Yeah, okay.
preliminary budget.
And what's gonna, I mean, what always happens is it's, well, you budgeted this much, so,
So yeah, so when you do budget, you try to hide it,
so,
You hide that column.
but you know, you try to hide what increase you are expecting, so you don't give your hand away. So,
Barry, what do we, for employees right now, or Terry, what do we already,
Committed to
yeah,
3.5.
Plus
3.5%.
the lane, 3%.
I think
3%,
the,
yeah.
when is the
3.5
union?
plus 3?
Well, the
So
steps,
6.5?
each step that employees move is 3%.
Not
What are
all,
we committed to our $28 million budget?
So if you're
as an
talking, if
increase
that's
just
6.5
for employees?
Just for employees at 6.5%, you're talking 5.5% levy probably, my guess.
It's the
So
brunt
it's
of
a
it.
3.5% cost of living.
not all of the employees are gonna move a step though. But
A lot of them.
majority
A
are.
lot of them
Yeah, a
are.
lot of them are.
I mean, that, I see what you were saying the last couple of months.
But when
that's enough
is
already.
our
That's right.
union
That's right, that's.
our union contract done this
We
year
go
or next
after
year?
next year.
26.
26 it expires. We have a year and a half left.
We're already committed to
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the last question on the SWOT is really about threats. We've talked a lot about them with the state and the federal legislature, but are there other external factors that could hinder our budget process or may impact how we develop the budget? we've talked about a lot of different pieces here, but I want
I
to.
don't know if he can do anything with this, but, Barry's been out for 20 years. He's got 20 years' experience. I'm a first-year guy. I don't even know what I don't know. That, to me, is a threat, not up to speed fast enough. I came to the last 6 months' worth of meetings before I was elected, and I still can't get up to speed. To bring a new person on and get them up to speed faster, the next person is vital.
You can only push so much into my brain at one time.
Me too, but still,
It's time, it takes time.
I mean, I don't know how you could do that, Phil, honestly. I mean, I think it is so much, like, you can't know every department in every area
you know
through
what?
and through
Let me
to
offer
know.
a couple suggestions. Onboarding. Once the person's elected, take November and December to onboard them. I didn't get anything until January. Then I started, then I was onboarded. I think we could do that sooner, just as a new guy coming on.
But I think that's up to the person also. Like, that's.
Yeah, you're really
Mhm.
kind of gung ho, which is good, okay? I'm not giving you a hard time for it, but at the same time,
We, one thing we did, I think was good, that offered you the AMC, to go
Yeah,
AMC.
you did, and that was
And
super helpful.
that was,
Yeah.
before you're elected, that's not normal in most cases.
Thank you for doing that. That was helpful.
Especially if you run against an incumbent, beat an incumbent, you're not gonna get invited, most likely, because that incumbent will not want to, unless
Well, the
you're.
election will be over.
But you know what I'm saying, it's not.
Yeah,
Well,
but
they're
they're
gonna
it's
be
still
that,
there.
it's that little
It's
piece
there-
of
it's there
time when they're
well.
still here that,
So, but some of the threats that I see is unknown financial problems, ranging from, internal, failures, or mechanical failures versus, we
IT
ran into a
threats.
couple,
yeah,
IT
IT
threats.
threats,
that was.
A couple of years ago, we had a
We could spend a pile.
significant lobby, when the White Earth Tribe was trying to ask legislation to give the land back. So that was some significant, that was a significant weight on us, so when we had to lobby and pay for lobbyists
Yep.
and, so those things are pretty significant,
The unknowns.
Yep,
yeah.
that's really helpful. Any other threats that we want to kind of keep in mind as we move forward? I know it's hard when things are unknown like that, but getting a list together is always important.
Weakness and threats, that capital budgeting, I think that's important. We got it in the weaknesses, but
I mean, the biggest threat, and this is part of the unknowns, is what is the state gonna do? And then we'll find out, but that's gonna determine a lot. of what
Yeah,
we-
Hopefully we know
Yeah,
soon,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
before July 1st, when
But
we
I
start.
think, I think the biggest threats that we see is keeping staff safe and physically and,
Yeah.
financially with the IT threats in our
Yeah.
public, and that public data, because I see that as our biggest,
The IT is, yeah, scary.
the number of
Number of threats. and-
attacks that you get on that.
Yeah. And that could get down that rabbit hole of spending a lot of money.
I was just gonna say, that could lead, which.
Yeah.
I
And I
don't,
think we're.
I don't think you
we're
want to
fairly-
cut there.
I think
fairly
we're,
good, but you can never be good enough.
yeah,
No.
I think we're, Judy.
You're
does
as
a
good until
job
the next attack, honestly.
Of informing us what we need to do.
But
We do it.
I don't know that we're not gonna have to go back to paper and pen and lock it in a safe at some point.
Well,
There was a time, I can't remember where I was working, but someone got into our email, and so I remember my supervisor came around with like a pad of paper and was like, "Don't use your email for any client data," and like just handed it to me and then walked away. So, those things happen.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to do before we review kind of the work ahead is, if in 1 year we've made tremendous progress and we've really implemented a ton of all the things that we've spoken about today, I just want you to kind of describe, what does it feel like, what does it sound like to have a really effective, great, well-run budget process? What are some of the things that you'd want to describe it as? And there's no wrong answer here, so.
Oh, we could give you wrong answers. I mean, I just think you might not like the end, but you're confident the data is accurate
Yeah.
and you're aware of, you've made the choices
Mhm.
that are made to get that number, whatever it is.
and you can explain it.
I think that's the
I
thing,
think that's the
explaining
big
it
one.
to your constituents.
The-
Of how you
And-
came
And
to
your
that
employees and your
decision.
department heads.
Yeah, the taxpayers can be informed on why this is happening, how it's happening.
Awesome.
We can tell them, or we can inform them through other means too, social media.
You know, Carrie's kind of the bridge between the board and the department heads, and I'm a micromanager by trade, I'm really fighting not to do that. But I want all the department heads and all the employees for that matter to feel like we're on the same team, even if we gotta make tough decisions. And that feeds into what you said, they understand why, oh, yeah, okay, I get that, yeah, it's gonna suck for a year, but that's, I would like that, we're all on the same team. I don't want backroom deals or, we're a public entity, everything is laid out there.
I think one thing too, when I came in, we had a cushion of COVID money, ARPA money. That is now gone, because I think it was pretty easy to say, oh, just take it out of here.
Yeah,
really.
Now that is gone.
It was, and you're right, that is gone, but that's what we were actually supposed to do with that money though.
No, I
That's
know.
why they gave it to us, so we would spend it and stimulate the
But
economy.
it-
So I'm still catching hell for spending that COVID money, I'm just telling you.
But the other thing is that we did some operating costs out of there that we're gonna have to budget for
Yeah.
going forward.
No, we
In
do have to find a
26.
way to get this,
Yep.
we have to find a way to start putting money in a savings account. I put my change in a coffee
You
can
mean a
every night.
Capital
Yeah.
improvement account,
Yeah,
not a savings account.
well, but,
Yeah, anyways.
but I mean, that's what I do. Now, that's my savings account and I have it
Well,
in
why
a
don't
few
you donate that
cans.
to the county? And they can get
You
the
know,
dollar.
because I'm looking at some
I'd rather
capital
donate that
improvements.
than my taxes.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I don't know how we're gonna start getting
I
that
think
money.
if you have a capital improvement, if you have a capital plan, you have to have hard items that you're purchasing. I mean,
Yeah.
it can't just be, oh, we're gonna charge 100,000 a
Right.
year, and when things pop up, we're gonna.
Yeah.
No, I
That's
agree, and
very
that's
easy
the
to do.
idea of the
But, I
plan.
mean, that's not gonna sell very easy, but if you say, we have, this is gonna go out, this boiler's gonna go out, it's work, its lifespan is here, we plan on replacing it. Might it go a year younger and might have to flip something? Yes, but this is the year we plan on. So if I'm from the public, the taxpayer, and I see that your replacement is there, you can justify getting to that dollar amount, or, whatever,
Yeah.
you might be. But if you're just, they have to be identified. If you're saying, well, we have a capital plan and we anticipate something.
Dumping money in the, but no
I
real
mean, it's
plan.
like, well, what do you mean? If you don't know what it's gonna be,
Yeah.
don't budget for it. I mean,
Yeah.
you
But I
have
even
to, you have to name the things specifically.
I even think that that's important in our budget process, period. Like for the public to know that when they're coming to the board to ask for a four-wheeler, we can say it was budgeted for because they let us know that this was their planned items for this year that they wanted to purchase. I mean, every department head should know that this is what they have in mind to purchase this year. As their, otherwise, what are they doing, how are they creating their budget? Just pulling a number out of the air and, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think that's helpful for the capital improvement plan, but also even just the budget.
Well, and I also think to that end, it sounds like having all of those different things be brought into one central document. So you say, I know you needed that four-wheeler, but this other thing, it came up out of nowhere and it's higher and it's on the list and we have to move things around so that everyone's like, yeah,
You're
that's
gonna have
next,
to wait
but
6 months.
I get why we're making that call.
Mhm.
So that's a really good point.
We
Okay.
did that with the jail. We weren't planning on building a jail until the state DOC came and sat in this room and said, we're not gonna close your jail down, but you won't be able to have any inmates. So that kind of raises it to the top.
Yeah, that changes things
Is
a
that what
bit.
they said?
They did.
You can have your,
Yeah.
I
no,
wasn't at that
No.
meeting, but I heard about it.
But you know what,
Oh,
Barry,
I
if
wasn't.
we would have planned for that, had a capital improvement plan,
We were planning for the Public Works building. That was what was being built, so
you had to prioritize.
you're not gonna be built, and the
You
jail
are.
had to be built first.
So I know that it's 9:45, so I don't want to go over, but I just wanted to quickly recap kind of where we're headed with some of the work. So we're gathering a lot of feedback. This is one of those conversations. I'm meeting with pretty much every department leadership throughout today. Carrie sent me some documents that include budget, timeline, and all those things. I'm reviewing it. I'm completing an environmental scan. So I talked to folks at my county's accounting because they just have a whole different way of doing things. I'm learning from them. I have a call into Otter Tail County. I'm doing some work for them on the side, and Lynn connected me with their finance person. I'm also just kind of gathering all different resources from across AMC, other places to see what are the tools that other counties are using, and then we can have a conversation. I'm like, does this seem like something that would help you? If yes, I'll help build you a template, and you can use it this year or next year. So I'm completing that environmental scan. I'll get that done within the next couple of weeks. I can send it over to you, Carrie, and then if you want to share it with the board, you're more than welcome to do that. The next thing is I'm going to look at the survey data. So they have until Friday to complete it. Taking this feedback I get today, the survey data, and all this other stuff, I want to kind of pull together a current state of affairs. What's currently happening? What are the things we think are good? Where are the areas that we want to improve? All of what we've talked about today, just kind of weaving it in with some of the other things that I've noticed. And then the last piece here is we'll develop some recommendations that include some tools and things that we can implement on the fly either this budget season or even remodeling some of it for next year so you have a different process that starts a little bit earlier. My thought process is that I'll come back up here one point during the summer to kind of share all that with you and kind of do an end of project report out. Are there any other things you'd like me to dive into while I'm working with all of you, or if you have any questions?
Hey, what did you write down as the 1 year? If we could come back here in 1 year, what were the highlights there? What did you write?
What did I rate? Let's see. Confident that the data is accurate, making good decisions. I can also send these notes to all of you if you want to. So you're able to explain and justify to constituents, taxpayers, and partners. They can be informed about why it's happening and what's the impact to them. Department heads and employees and the board are all on the same team, understanding why, what's going on, and how we'll get through it. Transparent, avoid making backroom deals and decisions, and being able to have a more formalized capital improvement plan.
Not in this subject, but one thing that you should be aware of a funding source for us is our sales tax money for highway. We are taking advantage of the state's 0.5% sales tax money to go towards roads and highways.
2.5 million a year.
Almost 4.5.
Is it more, 3.5?
Oh, yeah, it was 3.4, I think, last year.
I got it.
Is it just a 0.5%? Is that what it is?
Yes. So anyway, that money has to be spent for roads or highway purposes. One of the options, and I was considering pushing this last year, was that money, that sales tax money can be used to spend down your bond payment for the highway building. Now, we can spend it all, but that is something that I considered, and we talked about it a little bit. Jim obviously was not in favor of that, our highway engineer. So that's something that maybe with him you could touch base and
Sure.
Because I know he's protective of that money also. But that would buy down, we would have less money for the roads. We'd have to include that in our public hearing at the end of the year that this money would be spent for that, because that's part of the requirement. But it is possible for us to make that partial or full payment with that sales tax money, but it would come at a loss of road. So he knows that I suggested that last year.
Yes.
And he was very protective of it, but again, if that levy's too big and this board isn't comfortable, that's a
funding.
one option to finance. So you might want to touch base with him, just so he's aware that.
I think that's helpful to know, because I think especially as things move forward, I know in human services, when we were building our budget this year, we had levers that we could pull that we gave to our administrator and said, we don't want to cut these things, but we'll reduce this by this amount. We'll reduce that by that amount. I think having that as a lever to pull to say, if we're at a place where we're not comfortable, we might have to do this. Having a list of those things is helpful just as things start to come together and you're like, oh, our levy target was 8% and we're at 14. I'm not saying you will be, knock wood, but I think having a list of those things is going to be really critical for all of you to say, we know that this is tough. This is all the stuff at our disposal that we're playing with to be able to reduce the levy to give a place that we feel comfortable with. So I think that's helpful to know. And if there are other ones that come up, I'm sure Carrie has a bunch, and I think I'll ask the department heads as well, kind of what they have to do in a worst case scenario.
There might be some revenue increase in our NRM with an additional forester. We're anticipating that.
So there's county.
Oh, okay.
That's the sales tax for last
Perfect.
year. This was back in '21.
Okay.
So it's went from there to there.
That is a nice
5
jump.
years, yeah.
Cool. Any other questions for me, though? I don't want to take up any more time, so I won't. Just want to make sure. Awesome. Well, it was wonderful to meet all of you. My contact information, Carrie has it. It's up here as well if you want it. But yeah, I'm just excited to work with all of you on this. This is a fun project of mine, and so if you have questions or anything else comes up.
What other counties have you done this for, and what specifically have you improved the process for in other counties?
Sure.
What can we look forward to?
So I'm currently working with Otter Tail County, and I'd worked with them last year. We did a reorganization of their Min Choices team. They had some staff in public health and in human services, and we worked through a process with the leadership of those
So
teams.
it's more organizational?
Yep, and it was about basically how do we best leverage funding, how do we pull down better dollars, and it turns out that actually if you move them into human services, the reimbursement rate was so much higher that they could actually hire an additional staff person. So we went through this whole kind of org structure change, visioning about process improvement. It was around LTSS, long-term support services. So we did a whole process with them last year. I'm currently working with them right now for their health and wellness team. So that's probation, human services, public health, veteran services, about creating a shared vision and some an org structure for them that is pretty resilient in some of the current situations. So we've kind of built them a draft vision statement. We have some values. We're going to build the structure, I think, in July. We have a meeting set up for that. So we're actually completely overhauling the way that they're structured and being able to kind of build out what are the things that they can do between now and the next 3 years to kind of get to that operating state. So from the financial side, I do a lot more on the strategic focus things, but having worked in government, and this is my 4th year of doing my county's budget, bless you, I feel pretty comfortable that I can kind of lean on some of my connections, whether it's through MAXA or other organizations, to kind of gather all the resources to pull together a nice consensus of what other counties are doing in the way that might work best for all of you too. Because I recognize that some of the stuff that I did at Hennepin and at Washington might be an overkill. There might be too much work. And so how do we kind of scale that back to make it make sense for your county, for your size and that type of thing? So that's why I'm reaching out to folks like Otter Tail, and I have a call into Stearns too, just to see. So.
Carrie, one other thing, on our external funding that we fund, external entities, probably put in, when you have a discussion with them, say, what would it mean to you, as we are looking at our budgets and this difficult budget year, what would a reduction in your request mean to us?
To your budget, okay.
I mean, so Soil and Water comes and asks for a 3% increase, or so what would that mean if we don't give you that increase?
Okay.
To yours. I think we need to ask every one of those entities
Okay.
if they can remain flat or
Under.
and if not, what does that mean to your organization? Some of them might be more critical than others. I mean,
Right.
can the fair go without any increase, or they have been pretty flat for a long time?
They have, but they actually have quite a bit of money, and I didn't know that in the beginning. So I don't know, I mean,
That 20,000, that's been flat for a long time.
it has been, but
They actually put the reduction last time I went, but
oh, yeah, I remember
they
that.
took 5,000 less.
Oh, they were getting 25.
I don't know what the numbers were, but they took 5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, the museum though, we're gonna have a,
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. She's coming.
Well, she might, I'm gonna tell you, there ain't no money, and I like that museum, and it's a nice place, but there ain't no money, and somebody might have to do
Thanks, Ryan.
something.
Yeah, it was good to see you.
Yep. And thank you all for coming in, I know this wasn't
Yeah,
what
we
we really
got,
want to do, but I thought this was good conversation. If we can get something out of it, I thought this was one of our better.
He's the one that complains about long meetings.
Yeah, so this is,
He stuck to an hour and a half, hour 50.
okay.
we have a closed session before you guys get to.
We do?
Yeah. Real estate for sheriff discussion.
Man, I'm going to the back.
We do right now.
Yeah,
We,
it's about
we'll do it in a couple minutes, because Richard's got it.
We're just doing a break? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it like a 2 minute.
And Peggy was going to try, I invited the sheriff into the session.
Yeah,
so-
let's Okay, I'm yawning. All right, need a motion to close the meeting. Pursuant to statute, Minnesota statute, section 13D, subdivision 5, 13D.05, subdivision 3, to purchase and sale of real and personal property. Give a second.
Second.
All right,
Make sure your mics are turned off.
the meeting is. Oh, wait, we have.